So this is the final video in Unit 5 with these different topics that are important for thinking about applying SFL beyond the clause. So we've seen theme, starting point of the clause, the point of departure, right? Well, Martin then further theorized that in a text, like, you have a paragraph, often the first sentence tells you the topic of that paragraph or section of a text. And he labeled that as hypertheme. And then in a text, often you have an introduction, which introduces the overall topic or purpose of the whole text, and that is the macro theme. So macro theme is the whole text. Then each paragraph or section has a hypertheme, and each of those is made up of clauses, and each of the clauses has its clause theme. Okay, so that's the system of periodicity. Another important concept is then thinking about how writers or speakers take us through text through the use of thematic progression patterns. So here's an example of a text, right? And the first theme of the first clause is Wole Soyinka. Then we have he, his background and his professional life, right? So what we see happening here is, right, we have a theme of a clause, the first clause, same as the theme of the second clause, same as the theme of the third clause, which is the same as the theme of the fourth clause. And that's what's called the constant theme pattern. It's often used for this kind of description. Here's a derived theme pattern. So the first theme is New Jersey. We have the Northwest region of New Jersey, the coastal climate of New Jersey. Here we have a textual theme, right? But then we have summers in New Jersey, the leading industrial production in New Jersey, the most important cities, vacation districts. So they're all deriving from this initial topic or theme of New Jersey, right? And so it's like the constant theme pattern, but it's not New Jersey, New Jersey, New Jersey, right? It's different parts of the theme of New Jersey. There's also a simple linear theme pattern. What does that mean? Here we have a textual theme followed by a combination of assertiveness by males and acquiescence by females, right? May have pointed toward social divisions based on gender. One result of such social divisions has been a comparative lack of information about the role of women in history. The reconstruction of this role has been a leading theme of historical research. So what we can see happening here, we have a ream, right, that introduces the next theme. And then we have a ream in that second clause, which introduces the next theme. So, we can see this packaging up of information across the text. Another type is what's called the split ream pattern. You saw this text in Unit 4. So we have the theme. The only other considerable region of dense population in the world lies in Japan, this country. So it's picking up on the ream of the previous clause and then saying something more about this country. It shows a remarkable fusion of both densely populated rural and urban communities. Then we have Japanese peasant farmers, and then a textual theme on the other hand, the millions of people living in vast industrial cities such as Tokyo and Osaka, etc. So what we see happening here, right, the ream of this clause, the first clause in Japan, this country, theme 2, then ream 2 is split into sentences 3 and 4, right, or clauses 3 and 4. We have Japanese peasant farmers picking up on rural communities, and millions of people living in industrial cities picking up on urban communities. So those are some different thematic patterns that happen in text. You can practice these in these exercise, analyze the themes of the clauses, which text works better and why. Answers on the next slide. So if you want to either go to the slides or stop the video, you could do this exercise yourself. Here's another exercise. What theme patterns are used in these texts? And again, the answer is on the next slide. Now we're going to go on to see something called grammatical metaphor. And what does that mean? Let's look at a congruent expression of the world. During World War I, soldiers used more weapons when they fought. As a result, they destroyed many things. So here we have participants, which are encoded through nominal groups, right? Soldiers, weapons, they, things. We have processes that are construed through verbal groups: used, fought, destroyed. Quantities through quantifiers like more and many. Time is construed through prepositional phrases during World War I, or through a conjunction, a binding conjunction or subordinator, when, right? And cause is expressed through a logical connector as a result. But we could express this differently. We could say World War I saw an increase in technology for warfare, which led to great destruction, which maybe sounds more like something you'd read in a history textbook. What's happening here? Time is now construed through a nominal group. Quantity is construed through a nominal group, an increase or an epithet, great. Cause is constructed through the verbal group, led to. We have a process, which is increase, right? But it's now been nominalized, an increase. So we see a tension happening here between a congruent expression, what you would expect the meaning to be constructed through the lexical grammar, and how it is actually constructed. We also see abstraction happening here. In terms of technicality, weapons is more concrete than abstract, okay? But that's a little bit of a separate issue. But grammatical metaphor is created through stratal tension. What do we mean by that? And this is an example used by Martin and Halliday in their book on writing science. So, for example, Darwin's gradual rise to mounting complexity is literally at the level of the lexical grammar a nominal group, but we can expand it into a clause. Darwin thought that species gradually became more complex. So there's a tension between the literal, what was actually said, the nominal group, and the figurative reading of this phrase, and that's outlined in this figure from their book. And this is thinking about the stratified content plane, the semantics and the lexical grammar. So it's that tension that exists between the two. So grammatical metaphors unhinge the two strata, allowing for a degree of symbolic play between the two. So the play forces us to interpret metaphorical discourse on two different levels in order to construe the meaning that is being made in the text. Okay, so that's what I was showing you before as well, where we have things like Darwin thought becomes a noun. Darwin's gradual rise to mounting complexity, his thinking became more complex. Okay, so we can see that grammatical metaphor takes some unpacking. And here you have the strata of discourse, semantics, and lexical grammar. And we can see when there's harmony, when we have something congruent, like I said before, participants are construed through nouns, processed through verbs, qualities through adjectives, logical relations through conjunctions. But these can become scrambled when grammatical metaphor is present. And we can think about the connection between grammatical metaphor and thematic patterning. Nominalizations, which create grammatical metaphor, allow for packaging up of something from a previous clause into the theme of a subsequent clause. So factories emit greenhouse gases. These emissions rise to the atmosphere, leading to holes in the ozone layer. And you can imagine that the text then continues. So there is a reason for grammatical metaphor. It allows for this efficient packaging up of ideas as we move through the text. So there you have some references, and now you know a little more about thematic patterning and grammatical metaphor. Bye.